Hello there, and today I'm going to be getting into why Maul is one of the most interesting characters in Star Wars. Yes, one of my favorite. And I really like his character because of the depth that he has added to him, and I really enjoy his tragic story that has been culminated through a plethora of different Star Wars projects such as the Clone Wars, Rebels, Phantom Menace, and now Shadow Lord, which is amazing. And they've really explained and showed his intentions with why he does certain things. So in this video I want to specifically explore the areas of his trauma that I personally find interesting and that elevated his characters beyond the few lines that he had in the Phantom Menace. So yeah, let's get into it. So when Maul was a kid, Palpatine took him away from both Towson and Savage Opress, who were two people at the time he had a larger attachment to. This is because Palpatine sensed his great and brilliant potential that he had with the Force and viewed him as a person that he wanted to become his apprentice. And Mother Talzin and Palpatine were both allies at that time, unlike their relationship in the Clone Wars. And obviously, in the Clone Wars, it led to Night Sisters meeting their demise on Dathomir, as when Dooku ordered Grievous and the Separatists to annihilate them on their home world. Yeah. So back then, they had a better relationship compared to the Clone Wars. But Maul, he went under intense and rigorous training under Darth Sidious, which was similar to how Sidious received training from Plagueis, as shown in the Plagueis novel and stuff. This helped shape Maul into the cunning and fierce warrior with a lot of potential that we see in Phantom Menace. He was young and hungry, had a lot of potential, had both legs there, wasn't bisected yet, so a lot of potential before the Kenobi situation. So during Sith training, the Sith would receive harsh punishments to fuel their rage. From the Sith perspective, this fuels one's power and connection to the dark side of the Force. And the thing is, we see this with Count Dooku and Savage Opress in the Clone Wars, where he would electrocute him and he would get extremely frustrated, and he would even openly share that he hates Count Dooku. And it shows that it fuels his rage and vengeance. But from the Sith perspective, it fuels their power and connection to the dark side of the Force. And it's also why the Jedi wanted their students to refrain from tapping into those emotions, as they believe it leaves you more clouded, egotistical, and impulsive. And the Jedi way is just an all-round more comforting and better and great way of actually treating your apprentices, with treating them like actual sentient life forms, because this is Star Wars. I have to say sentient life forms, not humans, to make it make sense, because and in the Plagueis novel, Palpatine, he's taken to a planet called Magito, which is the same planet that Ki-Adi-Mundi died on, where all those clones shot him down in Revenge of the Sith. And and he goes through harsh training in the freezing and snowy conditions, which frustrated him heavily. I remember that. And Plagueis understands how this could feel your bond with the dark side of the Force. And Palpatine just emulated the same thing, so he ends up electrocuting Maul during his training sessions after he makes a mistake, which is shown in the Shadow Lord flashbacks, which is just all around. It's very upsetting to witness. Growing up, Palpatine was Maul's father figure, and he didn't receive the genuine love and care he desperately needed from a caregiver at the time, so he just got thrown and received a lot of abuse and manipulation instead. And Maul ended up becoming extremely obsessive over Palpatine because of this situation, and harbored a hatred for him that, in my opinion, outweighed his distaste for Kenobi. And he grew into a fearful, avoidant attachment style, which made him start to intensely want to prove himself to Palpatine, while fearing being abandoned after he was cut in half on Naboo in his fight with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. He had always wanted to prove himself during his years as his apprentice to Palpatine, but gradually over time it became more aggressive vengeful and upsetting after he went insane on lawful minor for years, and this later led him to wanting power, and forming the Shadow Collective and overthrowing Mandalore so he could rule the galaxy and become the main Dark Lord of the Sith. This could help him obviously form an adjacent version of the Empire, but in his own style, which is pretty cool and a unique way for a Sith to go down, or a former Sith to go down. Formerly Darth, now just Maul, but it's one of the reasons why Maul is one of my favorite characters and dark side users in Star Wars, in the Star Wars universe and galaxy. So he always wanted revenge for what Kenobi did to him all those years ago when he was young and an upcoming Sith apprentice. His vengeful feelings were so deep that Maul ended up killing Obi-Wan's romantic love interest, Satine, on Mandalore. And the dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. So Maul managed to survive the iconic bisection through his anger after falling down a reactor shaft, and over time he started to just become insane as he was isolated and fully abandoned by Palpatine and replaced by Count Dooku, Darth Tyrannus. And he was on a planet, obviously, I mentioned it before, called Lotho Minor, where he built a six-limbed apparatus where it was made of metal, but it looked like spider legs, and he used it to walk. And Maul struggled to stay alive in these conditions, but his obsessive hatred and desire for revenge on Obi-Wan just kept him alive. And as a dark side user, this helped him. But throughout this period, he was fed by this anacondan alien called Mauli. He was sort of like this worm-looking fella who he used to come back to ask Maul if he could have some leftover food. And if you watch the Clone Wars, you know this. He says stuff like, "I'm ready for your leftovers."
I'm ready for my leftovers. Oh, you're still alive, huh?
Who did this to my brother? Are you part of this?
No, I found him this way. It wasn't me. I found him this way.
You can't be trusted.
It's kind of hilarious. But, yeah, it's funny, but he probably might have drove more crazy down there, even more insane than he already was. But, Maul later, he gets, rescued by Savage Opress, who's his brother, and is taken to, Talzin to repair his mind and give him new cybernetic legs. And it leads to Maul being attached to him in a way where he treated Savage as more of an apprentice and in a quite professional sort of manner. But he loved him, but he couldn't just express it properly due to his intense upbringing from Palpatine, and his fearful avoidant attachment style playing a part in that. But when Maul became the ruler of Mandalore, him and Savage took on Sidious together, but leaving the battle with Maul grieving Savage's death, and this made Maul very sad, and Palpatine ends up beating Maul in the battle, then electrocuting him as he begged for mercy, and then arresting him, which is shown in the Son of Dathomir comic. But yeah, it's pretty sad and upsetting and tragic. But going back to what I was talking about earlier, with how Maul wanted to build the Shadow Collective to rule the galaxy, Maul wanted an apprentice to help him achieve his goals. And I was watching a Spin in This Wave video, and my goodness, he described this beautifully, explored this area beautifully. He would specifically seek out characters such as Ahsoka Tano, Devon Azara, and Ezra Bridges, all people who were trained in the ways of the Jedi, which made him feel safer as an apprentice. To have as an apprentice, as it lessened his fear of abandonment. And usually Sith apprentices, they want to overthrow their master due to their hunger for power and their desire for revenge. But with those three characters, there was more of a chance that they wouldn't, because they were all Jedi Padawans, and they were all Jedi Padawans who lost their loved ones, so he could connect with them more. And Ahsoka was outcasted by the Jedi Order. Devon, she survived Order 66, and Ezra lost his parents, and This made it easier for Maul to relate to them and tempt them to the dark side of the Force. And he wanted to form a connection to them, which was unorthodox for a Sith to do. But he's formerly Darth, not just Maul. But the Sith viewed their apprentices as more like puppets or pawns or tools that could be used, whereas Maul sort of saw them through a lens as like they're more like sentient life forms, which they actually are. They actually are sentient life forms, but the Sith are ruthless out here, so they didn't see them like that. But this all stemmed from the severe loneliness that plagued Maul after Savage Opress's demise, and when Maul asks Ezra to be his apprentice and rejects the offer, but he still expresses his desire to be his friend and be like brothers.
It is unfortunate about your friends, Ezra, but this is your opportunity to embrace your destiny as my apprentice.
I told you that is never going to happen!
Forget the past! Forget your memories! Forget your attachments. Our futures converge on a planet with 2 suns. We can walk that path together! As friends. As brothers.
My friends are trapped in there because of us! I can't just leave them!
You disappoint me! Ezra Bridger.
And he wants all these 3 Padawans to view him on a deeper level and respect him like a person and not a raging machine of the dark side. But that's like so cool. Like he really wants like a strong bond and attachment and feel that love and care that he felt for Savage back in the Clone Wars. And he's trying to find out different people like Ezra and even Devin and Ahsoka, but you really see it with Ezra, and it's kind of tragic to see him express that he wants to be like a brother to him, and yeah, it's tragic. But yeah, that was me describing like why I find Maul so complex and interesting, and he really is one of my favorite characters, and I like how Shadow Lord just elevated it more, and we know Rebels and Clone Wars already do that, and yeah, it's really cool. I really love Maul. Maul is one of my favorite Star Wars characters, so yeah. So if you got to this part of the videos, thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting this, because yeah, I really enjoy talking about one of my favorite Star Wars characters, Lord Maul. At last we shall reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we shall have our revenge. Yeah. We were both tools for greater powers. But yeah, thanks. May the Force be with you.